for the sake of all sentient beings. His Holiness just, I think, finished a set of 3-day set of teachings that lasted for 3 days. So you can check them out on YouTube or find a link on his website. So just check in for a moment with your mind, kind of see where you think it is, what you're experiencing in this moment. Try to generate a positive motivation for the class. And recite some prayers to get us started. So those who are comfortable reciting at the Refuge Prayer. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. The Four Measurables. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends and hatred for enemies. So how are we doing on this stormy day? Everybody got water? Everybody got batteries just in case? Joy, do you have your hand there?
Hi, yeah, I did. I wanted to say that, I was I don't know, I've been listening to you for years, and today I heard some things that I don't think I really realized before. When you spoke about getting out, not thinking about the past, just being in the present, something I really enjoy thinking about the past. I don't have to be in the past, but I like thinking about it. So that part I don't really understand.
Okay, so that's, yes, like you said, this is about trying to bring ourselves to experience what's happening in the present. Doesn't mean never reminiscing about the past.
Okay.
It just means while you're doing something else, you want to try to help develop the habit of letting it go, of following your thoughts wherever they are leading you, and be able to focus on what you're doing right now. Because the more we focus on what we're doing right now, the less stressed we are. It's really interesting. It's just a natural, that distraction by itself is agitating. So it's really just about that. So when we're trying to meditate, particularly when we're trying to sit quietly, it is so easy to just start daydreaming, you know, and sometimes that's just reminiscing about the past. Sometimes it's just daydreaming about the future, but it's a distraction from trying to get in touch with the nature of the mind or whatever you're meditating on, loving kindness or compassion or wisdom. You know, so whatever the task is, you know, so it's, you know, it's just like if you're sitting and, you know, and decide to, you know, you want to think about, you know, something in the past, you know, and think how, you know, remember the joy of some event or, you know, there's nothing wrong with that.
Okay.
Yeah. So good.
Okay.
Thanks for asking. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Have to wave at everybody. Although I'm not ready to be back in person because I really don't want to get sick. I've had a sore throat all weekend and I'm just kind of like, oh no. But then you kind of think, I'm not going anywhere enough to get a so, but I did have to go to the doctor twice this week. So anyway, but I sure do miss you. So, trying to find that, you know, contentment of no need. I have to work more on that non-attachment. So.
I think it's the same from our side too, Venerable Tendron.
For everybody, it's just like, you know, wouldn't it be nice? But it's also nice to be able to meet up with people who can't be here in person, you know, even if we were open. So that's, it all balances out. We hope. So we can, but in our mind, we can make it balance out. That's what's the cool thing. It's, you know, it's the clinging to something that isn't there, isn't present, that causes the mind to get distressed. You know, we're creating a condition to be distressed. That's why craving isn't helpful. You know, it's like, okay, I want something else. I either want more of something or less of something, but just something different. I just want something different. You know, all of those states of wanting what is not happening is agitating. We can use it as an opportunity to develop our wisdom, you know, by recognizing, you know, maybe I won't watch this kind of television program in the future because I actually really don't like it. You know, and turn it off because we can remedy that. So, but it's also becoming face to face with just this resistance to what you're having to do in this moment. You know, and then really when we honestly look at things, we're choosing whatever we're doing in a moment. You know, we really have this sense of, you know, that no, I'm not choosing. The world's making me. It's just not true. You know? So now it doesn't mean we're not often making choices between two things that are not the most desirable to us. You know, like choosing to get a paycheck or choosing not to go to work. You know? But it's still a choice. So how has this week been? I think I got 2 hours of sleep a night. Okay, no matter who you voted for, are you able to feel compassion for the group who voted differently than you?
No.
Okay. So that's a mind we want to try to work on because we aren't happy with that mind. You know, it's like, it's really about, I was reading the sutra on anger this morning, one of the sutras on anger, you know, and it was talking about, you know, how when we wish on someone else some sort of misery, we're creating the condition for our own misery. You know, because feeling that way is miserable. Wishing someone to lose sleep at night, you know, with that mind of anger, we lose sleep at night. Everything we're wishing on those others that we don't feel compassionate with, that we find difficult, or that we just wish would go away, creates a condition for us to feel miserable. So it's not very skillful. But it's always so interesting, you know, to really contemplate situations like, you know, like this election, where, and this is true for pretty much any presidential election, you know, where a whole lot of people voted for the person who's elected, and a whole lot of people voted for the person who did not. They're just differing points of view. But all of those people, all 74 million or whatever, you know, want happiness, and they don't want to suffer. And who they elect, or who they vote for, is someone who they think will best provide conditions for their happiness, whatever definition that is, whether it's safety, whether it's, you know, prosperity. So for the same reasons that you have for whoever you voted for, pretty much the same reasons someone votes for someone differently. It's because it's just a point of view. It's like, oh, I think this will work, and I'll think that will work. So trying to develop a mind that really wishes that everybody get what they need to be satisfied has nothing to do with policies or, you know, laws or anything, or who's elected. It has to do with a mind that genuinely respects everybody's desire to not suffer. And if at any time this week you were afraid your candidate wasn't going to win, would you wish the way you felt on anyone? It's just sort of like, you know, recognizing that we, you know, we cling to a particular outcome, even though we really don't know what it means for the future. We just have a guess. We can just speculate what it means to the future, but we don't actually know. All we can do is do our best to participate. As Holiness likes to talk about how, you know, it's really through cooperation that species, exist. And so that's true of nations as well. It's cooperation that makes government survive, people survive. Doesn't mean we don't, that there's, our country was founded on overthrowing a government, as all countries pretty much are. But being able to accept wins and losses gracefully, and without seeing it as, oh, now I'm going to get my way, being able to hear points of view that are different from our own is part of how we cooperate. It's also part of how we don't just assume we know what someone's thinking and why they're thinking it, or, why they did this or that. Other than, the Buddha would say, we can assume they want to be happy. That, our motivation at the very, underneath this, underneath that, and it very basically is because you want to be happy and you don't want to suffer, and you think this is the way, this is the method. So anyway. But when we're faced with situations like this, where we really feel like a particular outcome is so important, we are again reinforcing this idea we have, this misunderstanding about happiness and, suffering, that somehow, it's about out here, things external to our inner being. And the Buddha said that's what's faulty. You need to really internalize the wisdom that knows that happiness and suffering are inner processes, and that our habits of thinking really impact our experience of happiness and suffering, and are really the basis. Not getting what we want. And of course, our mind leads our actions. So we want to be able to recognize what actions are more skillful, And if our minds are all twisted around this basic belief that, oh, getting what I want will make me happy, and avoiding what I don't want, will help, then our actions of body and speech will reflect that. Whereas if we, have a more, expansive idea of what are good conditions for happiness, recognizing that others' happiness, our happiness is interdependent with the happiness of others. So the more that we can come from a state of peace, if we want peace, we aren't an obstacle to what we want. So what are some ways we can help develop a mind that doesn't get hooked by the superficial differences between people or living beings, and can, more try to connect with things that we know to be true about all living beings. This desire to be safe and well-fed and
I've been thinking about this for the past few days because I'm having some issues. And I think the thing that I come up with is gratitude for what I do have. And that really helps me shift my mind a bit to be more centric and be more focused and not be so extreme. So for me, it's gratitude.
And why do we think gratitude helps? Because I agree with you. I think it helps. What in this idea that a mind of contentment requires a mind that has non-attachment. How does gratitude play into that?
Are you asking me or just asking anyone?
In general, yes, everybody.
Okay.
You feel free to.
Okay, I'm trying to think of that myself. That's an excellent question. But I don't know, but I know it works. It helps me look at what I have and appreciate what I do have, and not to insist upon something that is unrealistic on my part. Or maybe it's realistic from my perspective, but I'm creating a mind that expects that. So I believe the gratitude just helps shift me into a place of, well, look at what I do have. Look at what I do have. Appreciate what I do have.
So Deborah, did you want to add to that?
I think for me, it helps me acknowledge what I have, whether it be tangible or intangible, and helps me lessen my attachment to other things that I might desire. Because I'm grateful for what I have, I want less for other things, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you're developing some satisfaction with what is. What you have. And that creates a mind of no need. You're not focused on needing this or that. You're focused on, oh, I have this or that. So it's a different orientation instead of looking for what is missing. Yes, Deborah.
Or even if it's something I don't have, I can be okay with not having it.
Right. Yes, Graziella.
How can I work to make change, constructive change from a mind of contentment? If I understand that I strive to have a mind of accepting what is. How could you're saying that when I don't accept what is, it creates agitation. I agree. So I don't know how I would move towards creating some change.
Yeah, I can understand that. I think that it's being able to understand there are two different things going on, with this recognition that there are things that could change for the better, or that maybe, let's just make it simple. Let's say you see a law that you feel is unjust. so the law can be changed. Well, then you learn about how you change that law, and then you do what you can to help be a voice to change that law. You know, it's not that you don't act to try to change conditions, but through that whole process, it doesn't have to affect your inner peace.
Right. Thank you.
That those are two different things. It's like any task that we do. You know, we all know that if we resist having to do the dishes, doing the dishes becomes a miserable chore. But if we just are content with doing the dishes, it doesn't interfere. The doing the dishes part, because it's not in the dishes. The misery is not in the dishes. We think it is, but it really isn't in the dirty dishes. It's in our resistance to accepting that, if I eat something off of a dish, it's going to be dirty and it will need washing. And that's okay, you know? So it's, you know, people have spent decades trying to come up with ways in which we don't have to wash any dishes at all. And that has an effect on the planet. So we're trying to kind of rethink that, you know? So, you know, it's not that things aren't complicated and that things don't have consequences. Everything has a consequence. That's the whole point about being interconnected, interdependent, dependent arising. Literally, there's nothing we can do that isn't going out in waves, changing the world, you know? The mind that we do these things with really affects not only our own happiness, but the happiness of those around us, you know? So just like in that small way, we can see that our attitude at home with other people we share our home with, you know, is affected. You know, if we have you know, if we can't do household chores without, you know, I don't know, cussing and complaining and groaning and all these things, you know, then people who are also there, you know, might be affected by those states. They might also be rejoicing that they're not doing the chores. It's hard to say, but it's this, you know, understanding that one way we can impact the world is simply by being a model of how to do it in a non-violent, non-aggressive, you know, non-hateful way, you know, that just accepts that, you know, that we have different points of view, and that in order to, you know, perhaps change the, you know, laws, there are ways in which you have to approach it. You know, there are ways to do that. But if we just stay at home all cranky because we, you know, we feel the laws are wrong now, you know, that doesn't affect change. If we go out and we, you know, shoot all the legislatures who voted for that law, that's not going to make the world a better place. So it's really understanding that, you know, I mean, I think that certain leaders, you know, of movements have really modeled this well, about the importance of being able to come from a place that says, I love our community, not just this little community over here of me and mine, but the whole community of living beings. And because I love, you know, and care about this whole community, I want fair laws. I want, you know, taking care of each other, whatever it is you want, you know. So you do it from a place that is out of caring for each other, not out of a place of wanting to exert your will over someone else, not wanting to prove someone else wrong, not wanting to, you know, just, you know, let's just imprison all the people who think differently than I do. Because none of those strategies actually work. They can work temporarily if you've got the military behind you. But it's not like people are happier because you've done that. I'm not even sure if you're happier, because the mind that once it lives like that, you know, is not likely to be a contented mind. and it doesn't create the cause. If we, if we look at karma, the way the Buddha described the law of cause and effect, that any actions that are done with a motivation to harm others are going to result in conditions where we suffer. And the environment gets, worse off. Our companions, we don't have as good relationships. There are all sorts of ways in which this manifests in the future. So it not only affects things in the moment by the way we speak and what we do in the moment of a mind of anger, but it's going to ripen as future conditions. This is kind of ridiculous, but, I kind of think of, the one idea is that this pandemic is from, this desire to isolate from each other. I don't want to spend any time with someone who has a different point of view, which pretty much is everybody. If you're really honest, you're not going to find a single person who shares your opinion on everything. It's just not going to happen. So the more that we can really just keep coming from this place, and this takes effort. It's not like it's just going to arise, because the little, superficial surface desire for others to be happy isn't going to affect us. It's not going to really change our actions. It needs, so we have to really work on reminding ourselves every moment with this desire to just yell at somebody for their point of view, or yell at the TV because of someone's point of view, or, I want to move to New Zealand point of view. That's been my personal choice this week. But, it's, these minds need to be interrupted with, where we can kind of pause and recognize that a desire to fence off people that don't think like you do will never, ever make the world a happier, peaceful place. Ever. Can't happen. Cause and effect don't match up. It's like really planting a whole bunch of apple seeds and wanting mango trees to grow. Not gonna happen. But we are so accustomed, and this is the desire realm. There's a reason we're in this realm. We have a habit, of wanting to not only get what we want, but we want to get what we want quickly. We become more and more, aligned with instant gratification. How, it's like my impatience, is measured in nanoseconds, the speed of a computer, just ridiculous. So we really have to always come back to the fact that, okay, I want to be part of changing, the world for the better. And, and it doesn't have to get better at my pace. It may not happen in my lifetime. That doesn't mean that my efforts are wasted efforts.
I don't say anything.
Challenges to that? I'm not really looking for an argument. Yeah, Francesca.
So I was just thinking, like, aligning yourself with people with like values, and becoming attached to that, that scenario, and surrounding yourself with people that, or, that you feel are on the same page, basically. Is that an attachment? to that, you know, that, you know, point of view, or that, you know, that way of thinking. In other words, that sort of closing yourself off to a, you know, just really narrowing your world.
You have to ask
And-
yourself, what benefit does it have?
And I think strength in numbers sometimes, or, you know, it gives you a feeling of, you know, confidence. You're not alone.
Validates your point of view.
Validates your point of view.
So what is that all about?
Your ego, yourself, the I,
Well, it's about you.
about you.
Feeling better about you.
Mhm.
Feeling better about your opinions. Feeling better about the people you hang out with, you know.
Mhm,
You know, and so this is the difficulty. That's the problem with stopping there. Of course, you know, there's a reason why we align ourselves with others who think alike in order to join, you know, have many voices speak up to an issue.
Make change, to have some
Any
possible
change.
change.
Yeah, I mean, those things require, you know, it's usually not one voice. It's almost never one voice. One voice can start it, start the momentum. But yes, it's about gathering voices. But we have to be careful that we're not just surrounding ourselves in order to feel good about ourselves, you know, and feeling justified in our opinions, you know, and not really doing anything, because change doesn't come about through just forcing one person's view on another. It comes from understanding everybody's point of view and trying to persuade people when you feel that your view, that's, you know, is better for people. You know, but you can't be persuasive if you don't even know someone else's needs. You know, why are they thinking this way instead of your way? You know, we need, you know, we're not so far apart.
And where to benefit sentient beings.
All sentient beings.
All sentient beings, and who makes that judgment call? What would
We
be
do as sentient beings.
Right. So that also is your own opinion about what would be good for other sentient beings as well.
Yeah, we make judgments.
Judgments.
We don't have about actions, about laws, about all these different things. But we also need to recognize judging people. We don't have enough information.
Right.
Coming to a conclusion that my way is the only way is not likely to be valid.
What if it comes from a place of love, generosity, compassion, those
And
types
I'm right. You have to be very, very careful. Because you want to make sure there's the only way we listen to each other is when we're not also clinging to a mind that says, and my view is the right one.
Right. That's what I'm thinking. You know, when I'm posing the question is, you know, where do you make that call? Like, how do you
work together? It's not a person. It's not one person's. Actions don't happen through one person. It's an interconnected, interdependent thing. And being attacked, and what prevents change is clinging to, you know, it only can be this way. That doesn't allow for causes and conditions to, you know, I mean, they will anyway, in spite of yourself. But it's just, you know, it's really understanding.
Thank you.
That we're part of a big group. And there's cooperation. You cooperate with others who share your point of view, and you're trying to, you know, get your voice out there for things to be changed in the external world. But if you don't come from a place of loving compassion, loving kindness for all the beings affected by this, then it's going to be missing something. Now, when we're talking about legislation and all those kinds of things, I mean, you know, it's not like we're going to come up with the perfect system. Why is that?
Because people have to like enforce it.
Well, because like, who's a Buddha telling us what is perfect? With our samsaric minds, samsara is never going to be perfect. That's what samsara is. It's a manifestation of samsaric beings, minds. We're creating the causes we're experiencing. When we're Buddhas, we won't live in samsara because it's really not a place. It's a state of mind. So our experiences will not match those beings who have samsaric minds in the desire realm. They won't be experiencing things the same way we do. That's really huge, isn't it? Try to get your mind around that. Like, whoa. But this is what it means to say that we want, the causes for suffering come from within. We create the future conditions that bring us suffering. So the more that we can respond to the conditions of suffering that are arising right now with skillful minds of love and compassion, patience, generosity, forgiveness, acceptance, all these kinds of minds, then our futures will improve. Our experience in the future will improve. But for the world to be a perfect place means that all the beings in it have to create the cause for that. So we can't hold on to that being a measure of success. We have to look within. Within the measure of success for a generous mind is that I always, habitually want to give. For compassionate mind, that no matter what circumstances I meet, I respond to them with compassion, with loving kindness, with patience. With the wish to never do any harm at all. So that all of our actions of body and speech follow these minds. So the desire to punch someone in the face doesn't arise. The desire to prevent someone from voting doesn't arise. It's challenging, isn't it? This balancing act we want to try to do. I mean, it is challenging, but it really encourages us to be less of an armchair philosopher, and, really work on our minds and our motivations, and then choose how to act, then act. Instead of wishing the world was just a better place or matched your view or whatever, the way we daydream, wouldn't it be nice just to wake up to a better world? So, yes, it would be. That'd be great. We have to create the cause for that. So, and that's our mind.
How do we find that patience when, it seems pretty irrefutable that the truth is on one side?
You see, that's what's right there. You're starting from a place that
is not good. But I
Well,
think
it's
there
not
are
going to
some
work for patients.
Well, there are some things like ethnic. I think that's there are some truths, like ethnic cleansing is not a good thing. I mean, I think
Harming
there are
others
some
is not a good thing. Harming the
Right.
people who harm is not a good thing.
Right. I'm not disputing that what you described is the right way to think of this, because the alternative is not acceptable. But I'm agreeing with you. But how do you find those that patience and that compassion when you're dealing with issues, white supremacy or global warming
Okay,
or
so you
wearing a
have to
face
look at
mask?
your own mind. First, you have to develop the patience. I mean, like, look at your own mind and think of things that you have trouble, that you'd really like to change about your own attitude, and you have trouble doing it. So we need patience there, don't we? You know, it's really about understanding that everybody we deal with is most likely a samsaric being who's facing exactly the same challenges of mind that you are. The same misunderstanding of how we exist. This, you know, the same misunderstanding about how we develop happiness. You know, we don't know what we're doing. The Buddha's path may be absolutely correct and we can follow it, but it may not be correct for everyone. It's like, to me, enlightened beings will teach whatever tools will be effective for the people they reach. So if we understanding, I guess sometimes it's like really looking at how do you treat a child, So we have like childlike minds, they're baby, baby bodhisattvas or aspiring bodhisattvas, so that means we're going to do things and fail again and fail again, and like Pema Chodron says, let's try to learn how to fail better. Just, so it's like that. We have to understand that just like change is hard for us, change is hard for everyone. Understanding that the reasons why change is hard for us is because of all sorts of things. We think we're right. We're afraid of this or that. We're afraid of being vulnerable. We're afraid, and that's true of everybody. If we feel we are absolutely right and we know what kind of energy that creates, this kind of tension and this kind of like, oh my God, when are they going to get it? You don't think they feel the same way about us? This is the problem with us and them thinking. Because there really isn't an us and them. We're all us. Yes, Robert.
Yeah, I've always found it funny because I've always traveled in varied circles, and when people have strong opinions and find out that I may not agree, they always say, but you're different. And I'm really not. And I've always found that funny.
Well, and that can be a basis for our beginning to start patience, is to pause, these are people just like me who have views that they think will be, if those views become the prevailing views, will protect them, will help their chances for happiness, that will protect their children, their grandchildren, their friends, all that kind of stuff. They really believe that. There's no reason to just assume your view is the one that's going to make them happy. And I'm not disagreeing that there aren't truths. That's what the non-virtues are about. This idea of natural non-virtues. The reason why killing is a natural non-virtue is no one wants to be killed. It's not because it's just morally wrong. it's morally wrong because no one wants to be killed. Other people's experience matters. So this understanding that we need to, be a participant, but coming from a mind of skillful, attitudes and, and wisdom, that we have to be part of that, that, we have to work with our minds so that, we can not do any harm while trying to get change to occur. And man, that's very, very difficult. And so sometimes we just have to really think about situations, like I always try to bring to mind the situation where, the people in India were willing to be beaten again and again and again and again in order to not just give in to the laws of the state, like, the salt tax. I mean, all things to be willing to take a beating for. But it's because it meant more than that. But, so when we're sitting here struggling to be patient, we can bring to mind, marchers across the bridge in Selma, who were, met with force, and understand that change is it's not something that you can just wish for and make happen. It takes persistence, and it takes, and if you want to do it skillfully, then you don't do it by force. So you don't use weapons to get your point of view. Accept it. And it's yeah, we can feel 100% confident that if the world were to, do this, we'd all feel better, except for those people who disagree completely. Temporarily, they're going to suffer and be very, very frightened. But, too bad for them. We don't want that attitude. That's not going in the direction we really want to go. And it blocks our ability to hear others' concerns, why others think that this, their method is, makes more sense. We have to get underneath everything, to the humanity, to the, our connectedness. And it's not easy to do. But this is where, how we talk about, well, you may not know, but in Buddhism, we talk about, going for refuge. And that the actual refuge, is the Dharma, the actual teachings, and internalizing the teachings. So developing our inner wisdom to where, so that say we are, convinced that doing no harm is a path to happiness. Then it makes it a lot easier to respond with patience. Because we go for refuge into our inner wisdom that knows doing harm will not get me there. That the means matter. Because they talk about the causal refuge, which is the teachings of the Buddha, and the resultant refuge, which is the internal, easy for me to say, internalizing the teachings. Taking refuge in the Buddha will become. And having confidence that if we just keep practicing moment by moment, we will have the result we're creating the cause for. And that these, external events, if we keep just, kind of reacting and not relying upon inner wisdom, inner compassion, inner loving kindness, then we're not gonna, we won't be able to trust what we're going for, because it's going to be contaminated with our self-interest of having it happen now. And it doesn't mean that you don't speak louder. It doesn't mean you don't join, protest, and you don't speak out, and you don't go, it doesn't mean you don't do any work towards change. It just means we want to keep checking our motivation and keep, coming back to what, these inner truths that we are, already have the faith of conviction in. It's, one thing to be willing to die for a cause. It's another thing to be willing to kill for one. Those are two different minds. So we really want to, check our minds. Where are we coming from? And every time we want to just, when impatience arises, we just want to be able to step back and go, of course, do I really think this is going to happen overnight? Look at my, we all have, most of us can just look at our own minds and see where we're, where we haven't made much progress, because this is it. I mean, this is where we have to overcome a lot of habits, and it's hard. And so does everybody else. And they don't have the tools we have. If the tools you're relying on say, make sure you live in a fortress, and make sure you carry guns wherever you go, and make sure you express everything with an angry vocal voice, that's what you're relying on. Persuading, I mean, this is difficult. And if you can't have compassion for someone who thinks like that, you really want to look deeper about what you mean by compassion, because that is a really suffering mind. The mind that thinks we just have to kill everybody who doesn't agree with us or send them all away, that's a really, miserable mind. Is this helpful or not? And I do think one of the tools we can use is just in our own mind. When you say we're trying to affect change and it's hard, is to bring to mind the people we know who share our point of view, to know that we are not alone and crazy or whatever we need to do, or rely on the teachings of the Buddha and feel like, oh, I'm not the one who's insane. Because one of the, the basic assertions here in Buddhism anyway, is that people don't know what they're doing for the most part. So don't rely on society to tell you what you should be doing and how you should be thinking and how you should be acting. You need to develop your own wisdom, because for the most part in the desire realm, our societies are out of their minds with greed and craving and lust and, just it's, like, So being able to keep stepping back and, relying on our inner wisdom, not on our inner confusion or our inner anger or our inner, frustration and impatience, but just relying on doing no harm, relying on minds that, of being able to, love someone who you, profoundly disagree with. Because you don't want them harmed, just like you don't want your child harmed when they misbehave. You want the misbehavior to stop, but you don't stop loving the child. Stop wishing them happiness and freedom from suffering. And the same for ourselves. When we can't get our act together, when we're not affecting change in the speed we'd like, when we're not, having a persuasive voice or whatever it is, we want to, be kind to ourselves. Not turn it into hate of others. But certainly, we want to use our voices. It's a tool we have. We just want to use them with wisdom. I mean, that's why compassion and wisdom are two wings of the bird. It's like if we want to achieve a state of non-suffering, a state of bliss, we need both of those tools. Yep.
You know what I thought was really a great way of thinking and helping bringing people of both sides together on the thoughts of how to bring this country together was that Joe Biden said he's not only going to represent the people that voted for him, but he's also going to represent the people that didn't vote for him.
Right. And that's their job. They're supposed to represent the whole country. So it's wonderful. Yeah, that's right. And is that going to be easy to do?
No, but that's setting a good mindset for all of us.
And it is going to be hard. And it means, having to cooperate, having to listen. And, it means being able to, it's the Shantideva thing, or the, what's that other thing? I don't know what it's called, but accept the things that we cannot change, change the things we can, and having the wisdom to know the difference. That's the same thing that Shantideva is saying. If a situation can be remedied, why get upset about it? If it can't be remedied, why get upset about it? Because why be upset is the point. What's the point? If you can remedy a situation, work towards remedying it. And if you can't, don't get upset about it. This is where thinking about karma can be very helpful, because you can just think, oh, good, I'm exhausting some negative potential, and I'm not going to turn it into poison by, getting mad, acting out, and then just creating the cause to experience it again. But the more that we can, I really admired when I was young, I had the opportunity to go on a couple of trips to Europe. And when I was 19 and went, I think I was 19, I took a Eurail pass, and so I was poor. You just have, you sleep on the trains on the nights you're going, and you said that you don't have to pay for a place to stay and all this stuff. And vegetarian restaurants were the cheapest thing going. And really in England at the time, it was the only decent food going. But what was really cool about all these vegetarian restaurants is that everybody sat on group tables. I mean, you just, it wasn't, no, you just sat with other people you didn't know anyway. But so I had the opportunity to hear a lot of conversations, in England and Scotland and France, I guess, mainly, of people just discussing their worlds. And they talked a lot about politics with their best friends who disagreed with them. It was a normal topic of conversation. It's that they were able to talk to each other. I don't know that that's so true now, but I mean, it really is possible to discuss things with people who disagree. In fact, it can be kind of fun and energizing, but you listen with eyes with ears that aren't hearing the voice of enemies. They're still your friends and you disagree, So it's worth cultivating an ability to be peaceful within people who do not think the same way you do. It can help us come up with solutions that meet more people's needs. And there are lots of programs out there that have been developed to try to help us learn how to do that. So it's worth looking into that if you're interested in getting your voice out there, but doing it with, a calm mind. Okay. Okay, so one of the ways in which the teachings say, one of the ways we develop compassion, because we have compassion, right? We already have compassion for people we care about, our loved ones, little babies, children in war-torn countries. It's very easy to have compassion when we see stories about them. So we have this facility, right? So what we want to do is take that. We want to, when we're reflecting on compassion, you kind of start with the people that you already care about. And you allow, so you reflect on whatever suffering they may be experiencing, and you allow yourself to empathize with that, to feel that they're suffering. And you allow your compassion to arise, where you're having that experience of compassion for them. So it's not just words, where you really can generate this feeling, oh, I wish they were free of that suffering. Try to generate that wish that you could help them be free of that suffering. And that if you could, you would do that. And then you just try to grow that. So then you think about the friends of your loved one. It's sort of like this idea of the dinner party, You welcome your friends to your dinner party, and then your friend shows up with someone you don't know. But you welcome the friend of the friend. And then the dinner party has to become just a party because there's so many people there, you can't sit down to dinner. But just in this way, you mentally really try, you try to picture the friend of your loved one suffering in the same way that your loved one suffers. The more tangible we can make this, with real people, the more success we're likely to have. That's what the teachings say. They're just generically thinking, I wish everybody to be happy isn't powerful enough. We really have to allow ourselves to sit and, create these experiences and then try to expand them out. And we have to use our imagination sometimes to really try to generate some image or situation in our minds that we can relate to. But we have things to draw from because we have compassion. So we just draw from our, existing compassion and from our experience from previous situations in which that compassion arose to allow this experience to happen in our minds. And so maybe you start with relatives, or maybe those aren't the people you need to start with. Maybe you start with your, best friend, but then you eventually bring in the people you find a little more challenging, like the great aunt from so-and-so, and then I guess a great aunt isn't from so-and-so, but a great aunt from somewhere, but the difficult relative or something, and then, it's just like, and strangers, but you start in a safe place at home or in the park where you're alone and you're just quietly reflecting on these things until you generate the experience, not just the words, where your heart moves a little and you can really feel, oh, yes, I really wish they didn't ever have to experience whatever it is. And then you try to, get it a little bigger. And then you can practice with strangers because you have nothing. You don't have any aversion to them. You don't have any attachment for them. They're just neutral. And then you just put them in situations, that you can imagine that they might be in or have been in or will be in, and allow that to foster the generation of compassion within. So this takes effort. It's not something you can just do. You have to allow yourself the space to really give in to the experience. Without it seeming like, oh, there's nothing I can do about it. Now you can wish them well. And that really is a start of having this equanimity towards all beings, where you really are able to feel compassion. Because, it's really so interesting. We have examples all the time where some stranger, we hear a story about some stranger and it hits us in the gut. We can feel it, and we're really sad for them. And then we really wish that they are, found or saved or rescued or, safe. We want to learn to, create space for that. So it takes, it's a good daily practice to do this. Because certainly you want to do it for your loved ones, and that helps you generate a motivation for the day, an intention for the day to do them no harm. To speak kindly, to think of them before you act. So can you see how this growing it can help us when we're trying to affect change on a much bigger scale? It's like one of those conversations you have with a partner, and you realize, we finally hear them, that they're hurt or afraid by what we've said or done or looked at, or, and we kind of get it because we finally listened, and so we change our tact completely. because we don't want them to feel that way. That's the last thing we meant to express. You know, we want to become that way towards more and more people and living beings. You may have to practice with your pet. You know. Any thoughts? Yes.
Hi.
Hi, Veronica.
Your comments with compassion, I struggle with that. I think that I'm able to relate and wish people well, or that they are not suffering. However, with my relatives, especially like, for example, with my daughter, like, for example, right now she's not going to school, so she's suffering because she doesn't see friends. So I feel compassion for that. But I think that compassion kind of crosses the line because I allow her to not behave properly or have more freedom. So I'm struggling with that. How can I have compassion and deal with the fact that, you know?
Because compassion and wisdom are different.
Okay.
You know, it is not actually okay, let's think of it in a very obvious way. Okay, it is not compassionate to give a recovering drug addict the drug that they crave. That's just not compassionate. You know, they may be suffering and it may be really hard, you know, mentally for them to continue to, you know, abstain. But you would not think of giving them the drug, right?
Yes.
Because you want it's compassionate wisdom. So with your children, the people who you're responsible for, you know, you need compassionate wisdom, absolutely. So you can feel for them, you know, you wish them that, you know, that school would get back to, you know, being open, they can see their friends, all those things. You can think that in your mind, but it doesn't give them, you can still be firm about their behavior, because after all, when they do return to school, their behavior will matter.
Yeah.
You know, so it's, you know, we're not doing our kids any service to allow, you not train them in discipline for social skills and school skills and all those things and work skills, because out in the world, they will suffer without it.
Yeah.
So, you know, yes, it's no fun sometimes being the, you know, wise one. It's, you know, it's not like we, you know, being a parent is extremely challenging. You know, you love them, you want them nothing but their happiness. But most of what you have to teach them will make them feel like they're being punished. But that's, you know, it's not true. And we have to rely, this is where we go for refuge to our inner wisdom. We know that even though they think with their little child minds, you know, that it's, you know, that it's punishment not to be allowed to act like you want to when you're at home going to school, you know, we rely on our inner wisdom that knows that actually you're benefiting them. And they may not like you in that moment of the decision, and you accept that.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. So it's not like everything we say or do has to please others. We just want to check our motivation.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure. You know, because we couldn't do a good job parenting if we just did what, you know, we just responded in the ways that the kid wants you to respond. That doesn't work. We're not being responsible. We're not doing our duty of care. So compassion doesn't mean pleasing people. It means truly wishing them to be free of suffering. So you don't want to become a condition to that suffering by providing whatever it is that in the temporary might seem like happiness, but really is the suffering of change, and that will harm them in the future. And we accept the, the fact that sometimes that's not fun. Being a parent is not, for the most part, is not fun, from what I can tell. So, and then we're compassionate for ourselves. We allow those situations to have compassion. Oh, being a parent is so hard. We had to wait so long for our children to understand what we were doing. We had to wait till they have children and like us again. But people that we are not responsible for, our friends, our community, then it is not our job to try to control their actions. Then we have to really work at our speech, our patience, to work together. Okay, so let's just take a few moments to kind of find our body and mind. Check in with our bodies, see if there are any, if there's any spot that's kind of tense or uncomfortable, or you haven't moved in an hour. And using your breath, try to breathe into any of those spots of tension, releasing them with the exhale. And then breathe in some energizing breath, trying to, from within, feel the energizing nature of the breath, bringing oxygen to all those cells. And check in with the mind. See if there's any questions in the mind, any things that are resonating. Allow yourself to imprint your long-term memory with any thoughts that arose during this time together that you think is beneficial. Anything that, you came to a conclusion about, or anything you wish to investigate further. And take a moment to rejoice in your efforts this morning. And rejoice in the efforts of others. And rejoice in all the skillful actions of body, speech, and mind that have occurred elsewhere during this time. Knowing how wonderful it is that we can rely on the good qualities of living beings. According to the Buddha, these are all evidence of Buddha potential. And then we just make the wish that these positive potentials will benefit others and not exhaust until there are no suffering sentient beings at all. So we can recite the dedication prayers. Did you have any announcements, Nicole, that you would like to make first? Or?
Yes, thank you, Venerable Tendron. I do have a number of announcements. So Tuesdays, we continue with the 7-point mind training by Venerable Tendron, and Thursdays, we start transforming problems with Venerable Amy. That will be a 4-week course starting on Thursday, registration on the website. Also, many of you maybe know or heard of Tenzin Osalhita. He has agreed to give a talk on December 5th, which will be basically answering questions. So we are trying to collect a number of questions from him. He is the reincarnation of Lama Yeshe, the founder of Global Tree Initiative, also trying to do amazing things for the climate, you know, help teaching others how to develop this good heart so that we may become a more connected community world. And then also, as many of you also know, we are still in the process of fundraising for our new home. And we have received lots of donations. So thank you, all of you that have contributed, really, really amazing. But we also have a very long way to go. And we have about $100,000 still to raise. So, and you know, this depends on our community. So it may not be all of you here today, but our larger community here in South Florida, and or maybe people that you know, because if all of you have been touched by the Dharma, as I know I have over these past 4 years, it has changed my life, you know, and this is how we make change in the world, in our community, in our country, in our state, you know, by creating places like Thupten Krunga Ling that promote peace and kindness and care for not just, you know, here we are, our little 22 people today that show up, but to South Florida, you know, and for the benefit of all beings. This is our mission, you know, and we really need help right now. We don't ask for money often. You know, as the director, this is one of my weaknesses. I do not ask for money, you know, because I want people to come to show up, that these teachings be better for your mind. You know, I want the money to be secondary. The Dharma is primary. You know, we also have operating costs. You know, we're still paying teachers. We are still paying rent, you know, and we will continue to have more costs with the new home. So we do need help. We need volunteers. We need finances. We need fundraising committee people. I mean, so if, however you might want to help, we need your help now. You know, this next month will really determine whether we're able to pull this off or not. You know, I mean, Rebecca has done amazing work for the center over a number of years and has found us a new potential home within our price range, which is quite amazing, in a lovely area of Pompano Beach. And we really need help right now. So I'm really, really asking for a lot of help. You know, many of you know how to get in touch with me. If you're willing to help in any way, please let me know. I mean, even just by sharing our fundraising campaign on your social media with your own little description of how the Dharma has helped you, so that we can get more $25, $50, $100 donations. And also, there may be other people that may be able to give $1,000 or $5,000, for a tax write-off, because we are ending ending the end of the year. So whatever ways you may be able to help, please let me know. And thank you.
The impassioned plea. So is our fundraising page up?
Yes, we do have the new home tab on the website, and I am trying to update that more regularly.
Support our new home fund here. So on the homepage of the website, you can link to more information, and then that can be a link you share with others. Or I don't know, they'll tell you where to link to your social media, since I don't have the slightest idea how to do that.
So there is actually an online fundraising campaign. It is in that page, and that's through Cheerful. And, we are all working together really hard to get all this, in order. So if you have any questions about specifics, feel free to email, text, or call me. And we will try to have another little community meeting next Wednesday, not this Wednesday, but next Wednesday, to review any updates and last minute things. But yeah, feel free to call me or text me or email.
Okay. So thank you, Nicole. And she can be reached at director@tutukugaling.org. So easy to find her. So now let's, of course, regardless of whether we end up with a new home, like Nicole said, it's transforming our minds with the Dharma. That is the most important bit. So we want to make sure we have access to that. And we want to make sure that our merits don't exhaust until all living beings have what they need. So let's recite the dedication prayers together. Okay. So may all beings everywhere, plagued by sufferings of body and mind, obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of our merits. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled with a mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see forms and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored on finding repose. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness, and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvests. May all medicines be effective and wholesome prayers bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from their ailments. Whatever diseases there are in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid and those bound be freed. May the powerless find power, and may people think of benefiting each other. For as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain, and to dispel the miseries of the world. And then for the long, happy, healthy life of His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Lama Zopa Rinpoche, in the land encircled by snow mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. All powerful Chenrezig, Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara ends. You who uphold the subduer's moral way, who serve as a bountiful bearer of all, sustaining, preserving, and spreading Manjuna's victorious doctrine, who masterfully accomplish magnificent prayers honoring the three jewels, Savior of myself and others, your disciples, please, please live long. Whoops.
And also, sorry, Venerable Tendron, but just a reminder that these are the last few weeks. We'll have Venerable Tendron with us before she goes on her retreat. So please join us for our Sundays and Tuesdays.
And pray that I'll live until, I come back from retreat. So don't worry, I'll be back. Famous last words. But it's, anyway, what was I going to say? I was going to say something. Oh, everybody be safe this week. I hope the storms don't cause you any difficulty, or any of your loved ones difficulty, or anybody in Florida difficulty. And wouldn't it be nice if it wouldn't cause anybody difficulty anywhere? So stay safe, and see you soon.
Thanks, Venerable Tendron. Nice to see you all.